Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'll be reacting to yet another scary storyteller channel for you all. And the one I'll be reacting to today is Shining Gold Tales. And the video I picked out to watch is 3 True Chilling Forest Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
I used to live on a small farm in the U.S.
Okay.
As soon as I turned 18, I moved away, and I'll tell you why. When I was 12, me and my best friend Zach, who lived down the road, we used to go into the woods near the neighborhood to play. Since we lived in the country, there was almost nothing else to do. We would always explore and pretend to be treasure hunters. I always used to take my dad's old cowboy hat, and Zach would take a small shovel with him. If the weather was bad, we would just stay home and play Nintendo 64.
I remember I used to do that back when I was younger with a childhood friend of mine. Grab a metal detector and just act like we're searching for treasure. We usually find an old penny or maybe a pipe that goes to plumbing for the house. But other than that, we never found any rings, old watches, jewelry, or coins that'd be worth some money. But it was fun though. But of course, if it rained, like you said, I would just stay indoors. But anyway, let's continue.
But we preferred to get outside most days. We would always go a bit deeper into the forest every time we went in,
Okay.
just to keep it exciting. We usually managed to find something interesting in the woods. Old coins, water bottles, some nice-looking stones, and other things. I know it sounds like really lame stuff, but we were kids, and at the time, it was a lot of fun. I had a small box under my bed where I put some of the things that I found, and Zach had one too. We had an awesome childhood, but some really creepy things started to happen over time. One day, while we were exploring the forest, we came across an old well and got really excited. We thought we actually found something good for once. We checked it out, but there was nothing special, and the well was dry. So we pretty much got our hopes up for nothing.
I was about to say, be careful when you go around old wells because you never know if a dangerous animal might be lurking at the bottom and might try to jump up and grab you. Or you might accidentally slip and fall right through and injure yourself or cause you to self-delete yourself in a heartbeat. Get out of them woods.
We headed back home, and the day was over. The next day was Friday, and when we got back home from school, Zach went back to his house, and I went back to mine. Not long after having lunch, Zach rang my doorbell. I grabbed my dad's hat and opened the door. When I opened it, Zach was there with 2 other boys. They were much bigger than me and Zach. He introduced them as his cousins, saying they were staying with his mom and dad for the weekend. Their names were Danny and Simon, and they were both 15, 3 years older than Zach and I. They wanted to come with us into the woods. I agreed, so we headed there. It was just a normal day for the most part, but Zach's cousins were total jerks. They kept saying that it sucked to be out in the woods, and asked us how we never got bored out there. Later that night at around 11 o'clock, I heard a knock on my bedroom window. It was Zach with his cousins, and they told me to come down. I managed to get downstairs without awakening my parents, then I opened the door. Zach and his cousins asked me if I wanted to go to the woods. I'd never been out there at night before, and to be honest, I didn't want to go.
Well, yeah, just tell them straight up, I don't want to go. You guys have fun. I'm not going to get lost in them woods with you. But let me guess, they kind of peer pressured him to go, probably.
I said no at first, but they fired back and called me a loser. Then they turned around and left. They went off in the direction of the woods, and just before they disappeared into the darkness, I changed my mind, so I grabbed my dad's hat and ran after them.
Oh, don't let them say you're a loser to make you go into the woods. They want to have a good time exploring the woods at night. By all means, let them do it, and then they run into something sketchy and dangerous. It'll be all on them and not you. Man, he should have just went back to bed.
I managed to catch up with the group before they entered the forest, and when we got there, we started to walk deeper into the woods. I was really scared, and by the look on Zach's face, he was scared as well. The cousins stayed in front, shining their flashlights on the spooky trees. I noticed that we were walking in the direction of the well that Zach and I had found before. I knew the place like the back of my hand, so I had a plan in case something happened. We were getting close to the well, and suddenly the cousins stopped and abruptly turned off their flashlights. I asked one of them what was wrong, but they just stood there like statues. Then I leaned in and peeked over their shoulders, since I had stayed behind them. When I saw what they were looking at, I froze as well.
What?
There was a person standing in front of the well, thankfully not looking in our direction. I stood there like a statue as well, not knowing what to do. Then one of the cousins, I think it was Simon, whispered, "Turn around slowly and walk away slowly. Don't make any sudden moves." I did what he said. We all turned around and started walking back slowly so the figure wouldn't notice us.
You see, what did I tell you? If you stayed at home and let them go in the woods, then you probably would have heard from your friend later what they discovered. And you wouldn't have to be running into no dangerous situation with this guy standing in the woods. But yeah, that was smart of them to turn the flashlights off and then say, quietly turn around and go back out of here. Because you definitely don't want this guy to snap his head towards your direction and then start running or following you guys.
Then something terrible happened. I stepped on a stick by accident, and it made a noticeable snap.
Oh, crap.
It was loud, and we weren't far enough away from that figure, so we all stopped again. I looked back, and now the figure was looking at us. I almost fainted from fear. Then Danny screamed, "Run," and we all floored it. I dropped my hat while I was running, but I didn't stop to pick it up. I didn't know if the figure was following us, since all our footsteps made it hard to hear. I didn't look back either, so I really didn't know. We eventually made it back to safety. I ran into my house and slammed the door. My parents were awake, and I got yelled at by them. I was grounded for a week, but they also looked really relieved. My mom hugged me and said, "I'm so glad you're safe." I was confused, and I asked them what they were so worried about. Then they told me something really terrifying. They told me that recently, an escaped killer was on the loose, and he was spotted in our area. When my dad noticed that I was not in my room, they thought I had been kidnapped, and they were about to call the police. Fortunately, I came through the door before they did. After hearing that, I started crying. My parents asked me why, and I told them what had happened. I told them about the woods and the man we saw by the well. Their faces turned pale when I told them that. They called the police immediately. Later on, when they arrived, I explained everything to them as well. They said they would take a look into the woods. Half an hour later, they came back with nothing. But they said that the next day they would bring more cops to search the area. They also warned me not to go into the woods again, and I was happy to agree with that. I could barely sleep that night because I was so afraid that the man would come for me. The next day, more cops came to our farm and started investigating the woods. They also went to Zach's house. My mom came in and said she found Dad's hat on the doorstep. I remember that last night I had dropped it, so I was not sure how it got there. I thought about it some more, and the man in the woods came to mind, so I started panicking again. My parents calmed me down and asked me what was wrong. I told them about the hat. They had a nervous look on their faces, and my dad took the hat to the cops outside. I managed to calm down again, and for the rest of the day, I just played video games, since I was grounded for sneaking out. Around lunchtime, we got a knock at the door, and I answered it. Zach and his mom stood on our doorstep. Zach's mom asked if she could talk to my parents, so I went to get them. Then they told us to go to my room. I put my ear against the door and listened. Zach's mom told my parents that Danny wasn't at the house in the morning, and after hearing the news about the creep in the woods, she began to worry. One thing didn't make sense, though. All four of us made it out safely, so I was confused. Then Zach told me something that scared the living crap out of me. He said that Danny had left the house when they got back. He left while Simon and Zach were sleeping. What Danny didn't know was that Zach wasn't really asleep. Zach said he looked out the window and saw him walk into the woods. He wanted to stop him, but he was too scared to go out there again. Danny never came back. I asked him why he left, but Zach didn't know. Later on, Simon came over to hang out as well. I asked him if he knew why Danny left the house. He said that he had an idea. Danny always used to carry his dead mother's ring with him. His mother had died a year prior to the events of this story. He always used to keep it in a box, and he would take it with him wherever he would go. Simon checked the box in the morning, and it was empty. He must have dropped it while he was running from the guy that night. After that day, as weeks went by, the guy in the woods was never caught. The cops started an investigation into Danny's disappearance, but he was also never found. Me and Zach never went back into the woods again, and once we turned 18, we bought a house together and became roommates. Nothing's better than having your best friend as a roommate. Now I'm 25, and I live with my girlfriend as well. Zach and I are still close, and I think about that night almost every day. I probably will for the rest of my life.
Ooh, okay. That is one spooky thing to happen to these boys. I'm just glad they made it out there all right, but let's just break this down a little bit. First of all, I would have been afraid too when the dad's hat laying on their porch next to their house, because I'll be wondering, oh crap, did this guy find out where we lived at and picked that hat up and left it there as a sign like he's coming back? But that is creepy, because I know none of them boys were going to turn around and just grab it and get out of there quick, because they would have been at the mercy of that killer. But then it's also heartbreaking to hear that one of the boys left in the middle of the night just to go find his mother's ring. He probably dropped it, but I guarantee you that killer saw him in the woods again and did something unholy to him and probably buried him in the woods somewhere. That's why cops haven't been able to find him. But it's good to hear that Zach and the guy that's telling the story are still close and they bought a house together. But that's a teaching moment right there. Never go in the woods at night, because you never know if any scary creature or escaped convict would be out there lurking in the shadows ready to attack you. So let's get to story number 2, shall we?
I was 13 at the time of this occurrence,
Okay.
and I had been reading creepypastas and true stories back then. I live in Carroll Island, a place where you can find a lot of forests everywhere. This was located in Baltimore County, and I loved hearing scary stories about this place. I always loved the forests around there, and I lived in a house since I was 6 or 7 years old with my family. The forests, like in any other town, always had some urban legends behind them. Most of these were told by older kids who were just trying to scare the younger ones. The teens would always go into the woods to smoke or drink alcohol. I hated that, but it's how they got their kicks.
Yeah, that's one thing I would never do, is go into the woods just to drink alcohol or smoke. I wouldn't do that because it's bad for you. But also, I wouldn't read into any of those creepypastas, because if I read any of these stories, I would probably believed in all this stuff. But I found out that creepypastas are just made up stories, but sometimes crazy people like to dress up like either Slender Man or what's that other character, Smiling Jack, just to scare the crap out of people who read into them stuff.
I was outside my house sometime in January on a full moon. This is when some of those killer clown incidents were starting to die off and come back in April of 2017. I never believed in them, and I still don't, but that night I started to question myself.
Well, you should be believing in them, because you never know. One of them killer clowns would have been right in your neighborhood. And knock on wood, another one of them clown pandemics did not start up anymore, because I'll be mad if it did.
I walked inside my house with my brother and my friend, who we'll call Kyle. Kyle was from the Dominican Republic and had always believed in the paranormal, so we had a good bit in common. We walked into my brother's room, since it was the largest, and we were watching Logan Paul's controversial video, you know, the one. Once it was done, Kyle remembered that it was a full moon, and the clowns were out because of it.
Oh,
I called BS and told him it was all a hoax, and
that part I would say BS on too, because why would they like to come out on a full moon like a werewolf? I mean, that's just crazy. they could come out at any time, especially if it was pitch black outside. They use night as their ally to blend in. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos with scary clowns attacking people, and none of them I don't remember having a full moon. It's just pitch black, and then you're in a lit neighborhood area, and then they start to run and chase you. I mean, this ain't no laughing matter.
Seeing people dressed up in costumes. He doubled down and said that if I didn't believe it, they'd get me. I laughed at his remark and told him to stop believing in that stuff. That's when my brother Josh sat up and said that I was just a wuss. I told him he was a jerk and that it was funny. We got into a conversation for a good 10 minutes. Then Kyle finally said, "Then why don't you prove it?" I said okay and told him I'd be back. "I know just the place to prove it," I added. There was a little place down the road that was put there for a park. It wasn't funded, and the only thing it had was a small walk bridge that was pretty nice. We called it the Duck Pond, but it was actually Seneca Creek in Baltimore. I left the house and got onto my bike to ride the few blocks to the park. At the entrance, there was another set of woods that was private property for the houses on the water, and there were also some abandoned houses among them. The entrance was easy to see. You couldn't miss it, and it was actually a pretty nice place during the day. As I was walking up to the entrance, I noticed a foul odor. Keep in mind that this is nature, where things die and decompose right there. I was about to walk into the park when I heard something. It was a voice, spoken in a low, somewhat luring tone. "Hey there, kiddo. Why don't you come over here?" That was when I went into full panic mode. I'm someone who isn't scared off so easily, but I thought that it could be someone out there. It was unknown, and that scared me. I turned towards the small patch of bushes near the entrance, and I saw something crouched over, deep in the bushes, facing me. I couldn't tell if it was a clown or a demon. I didn't even care at that point. Even thinking about it made me paranoid. Even still, I was about to go in and see what it was. Then it spoke again. "That's right. Come over here." Then I heard the sheathing of a blade. That's when I knew it was time to book it.
You got that right. I wouldn't even gone near that voice. I would have already booked it by the time I saw someone that looked either clown-like or demonic. I guarantee it was probably somebody wearing a demonic-looking clown mask just to scare people a lot more, but he's also unsheathing a Bowie knife or a machete. Either way, that's a sign you definitely do not want to be around him.
I instantly wailed out in fright and turned around to run away. Then I crashed into my bike. If I hadn't been riding for so many years and built up the muscle power to get out of there, I would have been done. I floored it back to my house. At that point, my body was in complete hysteria, and Kyle said that once I opened the door, I was not comprehensible. It took me a minute to calm down, and I realized I shouldn't be so scared. I explained to Kyle and Josh what had just happened, and we agreed to go back there the next day and mess up whoever was there. We never did that, though, and I never go there at night. Creepy man in the bushes, whoever you are, if you're still out there, let's not meet.
Oh, you got that right, because I know that he's furious now, and if you saw him again, he'd want to take him down. You should have called the cops when you got back and tell them the area that you saw this supposed demonic dude at, because I'd be mad if this guy's still stalking that area, making him terrified for life to go around that park. I'm glad he had enough muscle power just to hightail it out of there before that guy decided to run out of the bush and attack him. But that is really creepy.
At the time of this story, I was a 12-year-old male who lived in California. For a summer trip, my family and I flew to Boise, Idaho for a week to stay with my cousins. We stayed at their house for 2 days. On the third day, we drove to a small city in the Rocky Mountains of central Idaho. They owned a cabin in Ketchum. The first day, we went fishing at nearby lakes, played some games, and met a few of the neighbors on the small street. Everybody was nice. It was amazing. I thought nothing could go wrong. The room where I slept was at the back of the house. There was no fence at the backyard because it backed onto a freezing cold river. Directly on the other side of the river was a huge mountain covered by a thick forest of pine trees. The small path started on the other side of the river, but there was no bridge. The house was about a quarter of a mile down the nearest road.
To be honest with you, that sounds like a perfect getaway destination. You won't have to worry about the rest of civilization bothering the heck out of you while you're there.
I went to bed that night and woke up at 2 a.m., needing to use the bathroom. So I got up and did my thing, then I headed back to my room. When I got into bed, I felt really hot, so I opened the window. Not more than 15 minutes after I opened it, I heard the most terrifying screech from the forest. It was raspy and very high-pitched. I know for a fact it wasn't human. I've heard some scary stories on YouTube channels that often describe creatures that make weird noises that sound sort of human, but aren't. I heard it once more, but this time closer. In the morning when we woke up, we explored the town. At 7 p.m., my sister and my cousins got permission from our parents to explore the forest. I was uneasy, considering what I had heard the night before, and now it was nearing night. My oldest cousin Alex, who was 16, took a loaded pistol, a lighter, and a backpack of snacks. I carried a hunting knife and a flashlight. My cousin Julia just took a flashlight. My sister Brianna and my other cousin Karina took some extra batteries and a small bag of candy. We made our way across the bridge at the end of the street and back to the path that was on the other side of the river from our house. All of us began the hike to the top of the mountain. We made it to the top of Bald Mountain in an hour and a half. The view from 9,000 feet was incredible. At 8:55, Alex and I figured it was time to head down and ordered the group to the path. At that point, the sun had fully set and it was dark. Julia and I turned on our flashlights and shined them ahead as we walked. Halfway down the mountain, which was about 45 minutes into the walk, I got a dreadful feeling. The kind you get when you're being watched or followed. Something ran out from the bushes and scurried in the tree line to the right. I brushed it off as some type of small animal, though. 5 minutes later, we heard something that made me tingle with fear, and my heart dropped into my stomach. That same horrifying screech from last night echoed through the forest from about 2 miles away. Then I told everyone that we needed to move faster, and we did. It went off again, but closer. Whatever that thing was, it was moving faster than us. We were full on speed walking by then, and that still wasn't enough. Soon the screeching stopped, and we heard loud footsteps 30 yards to the right.
Oh, crap. Don't tell me that they're in the woods with a Bigfoot, because they make screeching noises and sound like they're stomping the ground with their heavy feet. If you don't get out of there quick, it will grab you, for sure, and your family members won't see you ever again.
I got the feeling that we were being watched again. Alex took his gun out and fired 2 shots in the general direction of the steps. The creature backed off, but even though we thought it was gone, I still had the sense that we were being watched. As the river came into sight, it caught me and everyone else by surprise. I heard the gravel path crunching behind us. I looked back into the darkness, and I saw the outline of something that resembled a human. It was on the path behind us, about 200 yards back. I told Alex, and his face went pale when he looked. We told the rest of the group quietly, and on 3, we all broke out into a full-on sprint towards the river. Whatever that thing was, it was extremely fast. When we reached the river, there wasn't time to get to the bridge, which was a quarter mile farther down. That thing was catching up fast. We jumped in and swam through the ice-cold water. The creature got to the river just as we made it to the bank on the other side. Julia and I shined our flashlights and finally got a good look. It was massive, a hairy creature that was about 7 feet tall. It had huge razor-sharp claws like a bear. Its eyes glowed red when the flashlights shined on them. Alex fired a shot, and then it darted off with one final screech. We all looked at each other with pure terror, shock, and surprise. Alex explained everything to our parents. They didn't know what to make of it, and we never heard anything like it again. I'm thankful that nothing happened to us, and that I noticed the creature behind us when I did. If I hadn't, one of the others in the group might have noticed it, and it would have been too late. The next time I stay at that cabin, I'm not going into the woods at night.
Well, man, I do not blame you, because if I saw a creature that was like at least 7 feet tall, hairy, with sharp claws, I wouldn't want to go in the woods at night either. But if that don't tell you that's a Bigfoot, I don't know what. But yeah, if he didn't see it when they did, it would have been too late. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Shiny Gold Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap. And that's day, y'all.